So, welcome to CIS 200. It's our Computer Science 2 course taught in C++. I think one of you, and I apologize, I don't remember, I'm bad with names, and you don't have to tell me, it's okay, hasn't done C++ before because you've transferred in. So if you run into trouble, let me know, but we pretty much assume everyone's had a semester of C++ before. And if that's not the case, it's okay, we'll talk after, and we can make things work. So I am Eric Chernesky. Nice to meet you. So I've been teaching here part-time since 2006. I'm a full-time software engineer. I like teaching. I'd like to do it full-time someday, but it just doesn't pay the bills the same as industry does. Go figure. So I do this on the side, and maybe eventually, at some point, I can move into this full-time. So we are here Mondays and Wednesdays for lecture time, and then Wednesday evenings for lab time. And this is, I'm not actually the instructor for the lab. We have one of our phenomenal PhD candidates, Dia. I just met him this morning, actually, right before class. I forgot his last name. He'll be the lab instructor, helping you out with labs. So we'll meet over in the HPEC building, room 1190, probably the same room you met for your 150 labs. If you're new here, let me know. I'll show you where the building is. No problems. This is me. I'm officially a Leo Lecturer 2. I'm not a professor. The university doesn't allow me to use that title. So if you call me professor, I'll probably correct you. It'll get annoying, but I want to drive that point home because I think the admin is a jerk. But that's not your problem. It's all of our lecturers' problem. So that's okay. No big deal. This is my university email address. Please, if you're going to email me, do it directly. Don't use the Canvas emails because that goes to my spam, not spam, to like the other non-priority folder. If you actually email me, it goes to my priority inbox, and then it shows up on my phone right away. So you'll get a faster response that way. You can also call or text if you like texting. This is my cell number. I have a phone number here on campus, but I don't use it ever. I don't even know what it is. So just use this. It's probably a lot easier. My office location is in the CIS building. I don't know if you've ever been there. There's no classrooms there. It's where all the CIS faculty and labs are. I'm in 239. It's a shared space. Kind of one side is the conference room area. The other side is some shared office space for lecturers. I plan to be there before class Mondays and Wednesdays, 10:30 till 11 is a little bit of a lie because we have to walk to the building, probably about 10:55. And then Mondays, no, that should say Wednesdays. Yeah, this will be Wednesdays, 1:45 to 3 or so, because I have a lab on Mondays. I don't have the lab on Wednesdays, so it's been a little rough. Or happy to meet you virtually by appointment. I know how Zoom works. I actually prefer Discord myself, but happy to meet you, do a screen sharing session. That's super easy. You don't have to come in person, or even during these hours, happy to meet you virtually. Right? Don't feel like you have to come in person there at all. So I can make that work out. Not too much trouble. And I forgot, I need to hop over here for a second so I can make sure I can keep an eye on chat. I don't think anyone's going to be actually on chat because you didn't know we did this, but that's okay. Just try and keep an eye on there. Thank you, two-factor authentication. All right, and wait just 1 second. Hold this up over here. All right. Okay, awesome. So about the course, you probably read this when you registered for the class. No surprises here. The program learning goals, these are all fun. These are things we assess as part of our accreditation process. Again, not anything super interesting. Depending on which bachelor's program you're in, the goals can technically be different. Software engineering is a little bit different than the general CIS program. Again, doesn't matter too much for our purposes. So our course objectives, these ones do matter. These are the things that we will try and accomplish through this semester that are the same no matter who teaches the course. I just have the chance to do it my way, which I think is kind of fun. So we'll look at simple algorithms and determine their efficiency. We'll create test cases and test plans for unit and integration tests of medium-sized programs. This is a little bit of a lie. Honestly, the size of program you folks can write at this point is not what I would call medium, but that's okay. It'll be bigger than you did last semester, and it might feel like a medium project, but in terms of what we would actually classify as medium in the industry, no. You can create stub procedures and drivers as needed to perform top-down or bottom-up integration testing of programs. And this is stuff we're going to get to, so if it doesn't make sense, that's okay. It can be all jarbly jargon gobbledygook, and that's no big deal. We can describe trade-off considerations for data design implementations. This is a lot near the end of the semester. We'll get into this. We'll design software so it's easily modifiable. I'm big into this. I think this is one of the coolest things about software. We'll implement algorithms using linked lists, stacks, and queues. We'll have a project on this. We'll look at various sorting algorithms and how we can use them, what they're good at. Again, that kind of goes with this efficiency here. We'll make use of existing class libraries and create a program using object-oriented analysis and object-oriented design techniques. This is fun. There are all sorts of built-in libraries, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's going to seem a little silly that we're going to reinvent the wheel and build these ourselves. There's a reason to that, so you can kind of understand how they work better. I don't know, like kind of the difference is we can all drive a car, but not very many of us actually know how the engine works. So like if you know how the engine works, you don't really drive the car any better, but you can like appreciate and understand what's happening behind the scenes a little better, and maybe make some other choices. It's kind of a similar idea. So anyone can write code using libraries, but if you know what it's doing behind the scenes, you can sometimes make some better choices there. We'll use object-oriented design to create libraries of related classes that can be used to solve real-world problems. I'm big into these fun real-world problems, and by problems, I mean we're not really solving anything super interesting, but we'll take something from the real world and try and write a program that does something with that real thing. I think that's more fun. We'll utilize data abstraction, data hiding, functions, inheritance, and pointers in C++. This is always lots of fun. And then we'll work with the Unix file system and with the Unix shell commands. This is not so scary, I promise. We'll talk you through it. We'll have a lab on it, and then we'll never do it again. I'm not a big Unix guy myself. I'm a big Windows fan. That's what I've been using for a long time. But Unix is great, and C++ works on Unix and it works on Windows. Who knew? So we'll have a little bit of chance. You'll go and write a program from scratch using a Unix command text editor, which is lots of fun. And then you can be in on all the jokes when people joke about how terrible Vim is, because you'll have experienced how terrible it is. But that's okay. All right. For material and technology. So the main textbook, and not really much of a textbook, but this online website subscription, you should be familiar with it from your first semester, is this Programming in C++ Zybook. I'm a big fan of these because like you can try stuff and actually write code and hit run right in the browser. I think those are pretty cool. So that's mainly the references for you there. If you like actual textbooks and want to go a little deeper here, the Data Abstraction and Problem Solving with C++ by Carano and Henry, 7th edition from Pearson, who wants to take all your money, is also out there. You're welcome to purchase it, or if you know a discount code, please share it with your friends when I'm not around, okay? And I just don't need to know about it, and we're good. And then if you're interested in Unix, again, just if you'd like to learn more because you think it's cool, here's two options, this one or this one. Either book's fantastic. Will teach you way more about Unix than I ever could. These are just recommended if you want to go a little deeper. You should be perfectly fine with just the Zybook and just the stuff I shout at you. Okay. All right. Awesome. I know this one, they've gotten pricier. They used to be cheaper when they were an independent company, and then they got bought out by one of the publishers, and they raised their prices. I didn't do the lab portion of it, so it should be a little bit cheaper than it was for 1500 or 150. Sorry. I don't remember all these numbers. So let me know if you have any trouble, but it's a pretty good product overall, a pretty decent product here. All right, and then tools. I'll be doing everything in Visual Studio on Windows. If you have a Mac, you can totally use it. It'll work, but you can't use Visual Studio, which sucks, because Visual Studio is phenomenal. There are decent C++ editors in Macland. I don't know how they work. Honestly, I've never used a Mac. My apologies. But other people have, and I think you folks can figure it out, and we've got some other resources for you if you need it. And then I make extensive use of github.com. They are fantastic. You can make a free account. Please don't pay for a thing. And actually, if you register with your student email address, they'll give you a bunch of free stuff, which is kind of cool. You don't need any of the free stuff, but if you're interested, go for it. Your username is public, though, so you can use whatever you want. Doesn't matter. You can throw it away when you're done. You can keep it forever. Some people like to keep a portfolio almost of the projects that they do out in GitHub. It's a pretty common thing to do. Honestly, the stuff we're doing is not that interesting. It's only essentially like your second semester coding, I think, right? Because you've done 150 and this would be 200. But you're welcome to use it. So What we're going to do with GitHub, and I'll show you all this today and Wednesday, is things will be private. So only you have access, only I have access, and only Dia has access, your lab instructor. After the project is due and I go over a solution, you're welcome to make it public. That's a whole other process. But I'll make repositories for you that are private. So I have access, you have access. So that way your classmates don't have access. I'm very annoyed by people who cheat. We'll get into that later. I have a whole spiel about it. Apologies right now. I'm already getting worked up thinking about it. But it'll be private, so no one else can go and look at your code. We won't have any issues. After that, you're welcome to make it public if you thought you did a nice job and want to show it off. And then Visual Studio has integrations, but I'm kind of fond of the GitHub Desktop Client that you can download from desktop.github.com for working with the Git source control tool. I'll show you all about it. Don't worry too much. If you'd like to use other tools, you're familiar with other ones, fantastic, have at it. But I like this one because no matter what language I teach, it's the exact same client for interacting with Git and GitHub. That's my fondness for it here. All right, what everyone cares about, how you get your grade in the course. So these are weighted grades here. So overall, out of all of the labs that we do this semester, that'll make up 20% of your overall score. So just because the labs are worth 10 points or 20 points, or however many points DIA wants to make them worth, the points only matter within the lab category. And then projects, midterms. Give me one second. I'm sorry. My son was in the ER yesterday. I have to make this appointment. All right. So sorry again. They didn't even schedule me an appointment and I have to talk to the doctor again. This is nuts. But for scoring then, so 20% from your labs, which honestly is almost participation points. If you show up and work on it, and Mr. Dia can help you if you get stuck somewhere, you'll get the points. If you don't show up or just don't try, you don't get the points. So totally up to you. Individual projects, we'll do 4 individual projects. They make up 25% of your overall score in the class. I'm big on the idea that you only get better at writing code by writing code. So you'll write a lot of code. We'll have 1 exam, just a midterm exam. It's worth 15% of your overall score. I'll give you a sample midterm that I wrote last time I taught the course, so you know kind of what the format is. It's low pressure. It won't be too bad, I promise. We'll have quizzes over every chapter and make up 10% of your score. Again, these are mostly participation points. Honestly, I give them to make sure people read the book. Right? If they're not reading the book, they're probably not going to do well in the quizzes. So they're open book, open notes. They're untimed except from the due date to have like all week to get them done. So you can go find the answers in the book. It's not too bad. And then the last thing we'll do is a group project, pretty much pairs, maybe a trio if we need to, but working together is one of the goals here. So definitely pairs. If not, if we don't have an even number, we can do it 1 trio, but pairs is ideal here. That'll be the 30% of your overall score. This is in lieu of a final exam. We'll do a final project, a group project. I know everyone hates group projects. I promise you, they're not so bad. And it's actually much more fun, and you get a much better result when you write code with other people, because you can kind of talk it out and bounce ideas off of each other, and you can find each other's mistakes and catch stuff, and it really is a better product. And in the real world, if you're the only one writing code, it's really lonely to just do it all by yourself. Right? It's really nice to be a part of a team, people that you can work with. So, and then the scale 94 and up is an A, and so on. This should be standard. This was off the syllabus template, so it shouldn't be any surprises there. And then our tentative schedule. I do say tentative because if it needs to change, we'll change it. But this is the plan. So this week, Monday, Wednesday, right? And we just go Monday, Wednesday through the weeks. We've got the course introduction. I'll talk all about GitHub and Unix. Next week, we don't have class Monday for Labor Day. Go do something fun. And then we'll get into objects and classes from Zybooks. This is the main reference. I'm going to do more than what's in Zybooks, though. So there's like more to objects and classes than what they cover. But we'll get into that. Should be mostly a refresher, if I recall correctly, from 150, which you should have done objects and classes before. If this is brand new, let me know, because that will be rough. Okay. After that, we just work our way through some chapters. We do exceptions and pointers. We do a lot more with pointers. You should have hopefully seen what a pointer was, I think. A couple head nods. Okay, that's good. We'll do a lot more with them, and then we'll start our first project, named Project 0 because of arrays and that sort of thing. It's ha ha ha. Sure. And we get more into arrays and vectors, start doing 2-dimensional arrays and vectors. I'm not a fan of arrays. I'm very spoiled. I do only Windows programming where we have tons of memory. So I don't need to use an array that's ever so slightly faster and more efficient than a vector. I love vectors because they're a lot easier to work with, and you can resize them. That's awesome. So I'm a big fan of vectors. I'll spend more time on that. But we'll also talk about arrays as well. And then the idea with the projects is they'll have a due date, and they're due at before class starts. The first thing we're going to do in class is I'll go over a solution to it. I generally have pretty good feedback. People seem to think that it's worthwhile. I ask at the end of the semester surveys if you think it was a waste of your time or not. I think I've only had one person say they didn't like it over the last bunch of years. So I'll go over how I would solve the problem. And then there's a solution out there. So because there's a solution out there, immediately after the due date, or half an hour to an hour after the due date, I can't take it late. So please plan accordingly. If you don't get it in by the due date, I can't take it because there's a solution out there. And hopefully that does make sense. So everyone will have 2 weeks for the individual projects. So should be plenty of time to get them done. They're not huge. They're not decent size, but nothing too crazy. I will do every 2 weeks for projects, and then we'll get to the group project, and that is literally the last month of the class, essentially, is the group project. So this one is bigger. Go figure. We'll get into more of inheritance in project 1. We'll do containers and abstract data types. We'll talk about recursion, templates, linked lists. We have a week set aside for the midterm. This so happens to be, because I get to write the schedule, the week I'm out of town at Disney World. So you'll have time to do the midterm review. You'll have time to take the midterm. Things will be great. And then we'll come back and I'll have a nice tan and we can go on from there. So it is slightly later in the semester. I apologize, but hey, I got to make the schedule, so it's a perk. And then project 3 will be due after that. I promise the midterm shouldn't be high stress. It's open book, open notes, because I make a lot of money as a programmer, and no one has ever told me I have to do it from memory. Go figure. Like, they want a good product. They don't want to know what I know in my head. So I don't expect to test you for what you have in your head. Right? Go and find your resources. Go look things up if you need to reference things. That's why we have like library documentation. You can go and see what the library does. You don't need to memorize anything, and you'll do it on your computer. Right? If there's paper exams are stupid for computer stuff, but that's my opinion. And there's a lot of people here smarter than I am, and they have a different opinion, and that's perfectly fine. They're welcome to have their opinion, even if it's wrong. Then we'll talk about stacks and queues. We'll get into searching and sorting. We're off the entire week for Thanksgiving break, which is fantastic. So no lecture Monday or Wednesday, no lab. We come back, we do streams, and that's files essentially. And then talk about ethics is not in Zybooks, but it's a super important topic. I'm glad we cover it. You don't want to end up at a place like Uber. They're just a terrible organization. I hope no one goes to work for them, because they are awful. We'll talk all about them and why they're terrible. So. And then the last week is set aside just for the group project to work, for me to float around, work with pairs, make sure things work well for you. And then instead of a final exam, you'll present your final projects in class. We have 3 hours, and there's probably going to be 12, 13 groups, maybe 14 if more people registered. So at about 5 to 10 minutes each group, we usually can get it done in 3 hours. It goes pretty quick. And then this is a good chance for you to start getting comfortable with showing your code off to your peers. I know I'm in the back assessing it, but you can mostly forget about me. It's showing your code, what you did, to your peers, just like you're going to do in the industry. You're going to write some code and show it off to your team and say, hey, look at what I did. And then when you get some sort of feedback. You'll all be doing the exact same project, so it won't be quite as interesting for feedback, but that's okay. Just a chance to talk. And then we're done with the class. Questions, thoughts, concerns? It's a tentative schedule. All right, awesome. Other course-specific policies. Again, I mentioned I'm big on academic integrity, and honestly, you folks should be too. If your classmates cheat their way through their degree and they go get hired by a company, they're going to suck at their job, and that company will not hire our graduates anymore. Right? So people who cheat their way through school are devaluing the degree for everyone. So it pisses me off. And like, you can ask my wife. I get real upset about this sort of stuff. So don't cheat. Okay, it's not hard. Like, you're taking the class, you can do your own work, you can practice the things to get better at it. And if you are struggling, you have all of my contact information. You can reach me on Discord, you can reach me on my cell phone, you can email me, you can find me in my office. Right? They literally pay me to help make sure you understand this stuff. I don't get paid just to talk at you. Right? Like, I'm here to help. All right. So don't share your code. Right? If someone says, hey, I just want to see how you did it, don't trust them. They're going to copy you. Right? They're not just going to see what you did. They're just going to copy you. So both people who supply code and take it are in violation of our academic integrity policy. So tell them no. Get lost. The penalty for any academic integrity violation is failure in the class. There is no 0 on the assignment. There is no nothing. You will immediately fail the class and be reported to the dean's office. It is a crap ton of paperwork for me to do, and I hate it. I don't like doing busy work, paperwork, for me to have to document all the things that happened. It happens every semester. I've not had a semester yet where I've not had someone cheat, and I cannot for the life of me understand it. It drives me nuts. But just don't do it, okay? That being said as well, Chegg.com or similar sites are not allowed at all. You'll be better off staying away from them, I promise you. They're getting sued. Hopefully they go out of business, because they are awful, because they let people pay to cheat with their, quote, tutoring service. It's ridiculous. And then I can submit stuff to them for takedowns, but I have to get the dean to do paperwork. And that makes my dean unhappy to have to do extra paperwork when I start doing things too. And I don't want to be on the dean's naughty list, right? I want the dean to like me. I don't want to have to send stuff to him every time to say, hey, can we take this off a Chegg? Hey, can we take this off a Chegg? Hey, can we take this off a Chegg? Sorry, that was the wrong mouse button. So just don't go there, and other similar sites. I know there's a website called Stack Overflow. I use it a lot, especially at the day job, right? That's fine. But what you can't do is go post your assignment and say, hey, someone help me with this, right? If you go to Stack Overflow and find an algorithm or find a function or find a method that solves one particular problem, great, go for it. Cite your source. This is academia. Cite your source and we're good, right? It's plagiarism if you're using someone else's work without crediting them. right? So my job, why they pay me, is to come up with an assignment that you can't go Google, right? If you can go Google the assignment, I did a bad job. So you'll have an assignment you shouldn't be able to Google. I'm decent at Googling, turns out. That's a pretty good skill when it comes to software engineers. You have to be pretty good at Googling. So you shouldn't be able to find a solution out there. If after I give you the assignment, you can find a solution out there, I mean, someone went out to check.com or a similar site and posted it, and then I'm going to get upset. Okay, I had one semester of CIS 200. I had 7 people cheat on the final exam, looking up something, because someone posted it on Chegg and got an answer within like an hour. I didn't know that could happen, honestly. So that was a little bit of a surprise. But 7 of them failed the class and had to retake it. And the funny part is they had to retake it with me as an independent study, because otherwise they couldn't go take the next class in the series. And if you can't take the next class in your series, it delays your graduation dates. The dean felt bad for them and said, well, you can pay us to take it again, and you got to take it with Eric. And they all had to say yes. So I got paid to give them more projects. It still upset me though. Like, it's just do the work. Okay, it's not like impossible work. I promise. If you're not sure, please ask. Ask before you turn something in. I always get the excuse from people, well, I didn't know how to cite a source. Well, you've got 4 different ways of contacting me. You didn't try any of them, so I don't believe you. That's really what it comes down to. And then the dean's office, or actually college-wide, I think all the deans share a list. And after 3 violations of this, you will no longer be welcome to be a student here, and they will kick you out, which is good. We should not have cheaters getting degrees from U of M Dearborn or anywhere, right? You should not be able to cheat your way through school, because it devalues the degree for everyone. Can you tell it upsets me? I'm sorry. Deep breath, a little coffee. All right, and then get the late projects and homework. They're not accepted without prior approval. If you've got some sort of family medical emergency and couldn't come up, happy to work with you if it was a real emergency, and you'll get an alternate project. The problem with alternate projects is we have a new project every 2 weeks, so then you're doubled up. But it was an emergency. I get it. I'll work with you, and you can figure it out from there. Other than that, I don't take them late. The food pantry, this came as a copy paste from the template, but this is fantastic. So we actually have food. I haven't been. They had pictures of it. It's actually like decently stocked. Not anything like fantastic, but definitely available there. If you need some additional resources, get in touch with them. That's awesome. Our COVID policy, nothing has changed yet. Hopefully things stay low, and we don't have any more giant outbreaks, and life will be good. We can start to feel like it's more of a general cold sort of thing as we all get our shots, and most people seem to do better with it, which is awesome. So I've got 7 kids at home. My little guy's 5 weeks old, so I'm a little worried about stuff like this, but I think we'll be okay. And then university-wide policies, all the other stuff you should be able to find in Canvas. All right. Sorry for reading most of this to you. I know you folks know how to read. I just want to go over. I wasn't even in the highlights, so now I feel bad. So, all right. That was the syllabus. Questions, thoughts, concerns? Yeah.
So since you're live streaming
Yes.
on Twitch, do you save the live streams or VODs and like post it onto Canvas for anybody that missed class that day?
I put them on YouTube. That's a good question. I should talk about that. Thank you. Yeah. So I do like to live stream because I think it's cool. I promised you the story about it too. So one of the courses I used to teach was C#. I'm actually going to teach it again this winter. Hopefully everything will work out. And I had 6 kids at the time and drank coffee all the time. And I would bring a whole thermos of coffee to take with me to class, because night classes are rough. Like 3 credit hour classes at night. We'd go till 8:45 p.m. like every time, because there's just a lot of material to cover. I talk a little fast. Just holler at me, like just shout it, like, hey, slow down. Like, you don't even need to raise your hand, just shout at me, slow down. Or can you say that again? I'm very informal. But at the end of the semester survey, they left a note, and I'm both a little proud and a little embarrassed by it, but I like to share it. They said, Eric is like a squirrel with an adrenaline shot. Okay, that's what it is. That's kind of me. So I had been a giant nerd. I've watched stuff on Twitch before for years. I was a big fan of Day 9 years ago when he would cast StarCraft 2 games. That sort of fun stuff. And then a lot of chess streamers are out there now as well, and some other variety streamers are kind of fun. Anyway, So I was like, hey, I could probably do this. So I started streaming my classes on Twitch, and it worked out pretty well. You could join live. It was a night class in the winter, so if weather was bad, people couldn't make it very easily. It was a great alternative. And then there was a recording, which was awesome. So Twitch will keep them for about 45 days or so before they get deleted. And I figured that was enough. And then I had someone complain when they were taking the final exam that my lecture from week 2 was gone. It's like, you're going to go back to the video at this point, and that kind of hurt my head a little bit, but okay. So now I start exporting them all out to YouTube. So I'll post these links for you. So my Twitch channel, super hard to find, twitch.tv/Eric Chernesky. You're welcome to join lectures live. I don't take attendance. It's your own responsibility for catching the material. So if you want to be here, great. If you don't want to be here, great. That's up to you. Like, this is the time I have set aside to talk at you, for lack of a better word. That's what it is. So if you're not here, or you're not like active on Twitch and chatting at me, and you start asking me lots of questions, I'm going to tell you, are you coming to class? You should probably come to class, because that's a better time to ask me those questions. Let's just be honest, than taking up my office hours and all sorts of other things like that. So that's my Twitch channel. So I plan to be live. It is public, so if you join Twitch, you can use whatever handle you want. I don't care. I don't need to know who's asking the questions where. And I did actually have a few people say they thought that was really cool, that they could ask questions anonymously, and then they didn't feel so bad, because you shouldn't feel bad asking questions. Like, that's literally everyone in the software industry asks questions, because no one can know it all. There's just too much to know. So questions are good. But that's okay if you're not comfortable. That's no big deal. You can ask the questions. So we've got chat. Check it out on this other monitor over here. You can see the list of chat. I'll try and keep that up so I can keep an eye on it. And there's me too, of course. Yeah. So it's there. And then I do export them out to YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel, also named Eric Chernesky, super hard to find. So that'll be out there as well. So I've got all my classes and archives. If you're bored and want to go do other stuff because you folks have too much time on your hands, go for it. There's nothing super special I'm going to show that can't be out here on YouTube. So no big deals. Just do be aware if you're shouting at me from back there, and you do need to shout a little bit. I've got a little bit of hearing loss. You don't actually have to yell. I don't mean shout, but a little louder. Your voice might show up on the camera, on the microphone. I know how things work. Microphone picks up voices. Camera picks up me. It might show up there, so just you don't have to say what your name is, and we're okay. Does that sound okay? All right, awesome. So you're welcome to join either way you want to. Should work out pretty well from there. We got Alex and Aiden. Nice. Thanks for joining along. So I'll post those links as well. So the YouTube link, the Twitch link, if you want to join live on Twitch, if you just want to watch recordings on YouTube, and they'll be there because I do talk fast. And just holler at me, I'll slow down. Happy to do that, because if it's too fast for you, it's too fast for someone else. Please don't feel bad like it's only you. There's a lot of you folks in the room, and many of you are in the exact same situation. So if it's too fast, going over a topic that wasn't covered well enough in your previous course, let me know, because I'm going to make a lot of assumptions. Let's see, I think Visual Studio is up to date here. I can launch it again. Fantastic. That updated behind the scenes pretty well. All right, so I want to tell you a little bit about Git and GitHub. I also have, because Canvas is not made for code, right? You can put files in Canvas. Canvas is great for files. Code doesn't work so well out here. It's not what it's made for. So Git is a source control tool. We just look up Git here and go take a look at the Wikipedia page. This is Git. Git is a source control tool developed by our friend Linus Torvald, the founder of Linux, because the current tools weren't good enough. He thought he could do better, and he could. Yes, I promise you. This is the best source control tool out there. So Git is open source. Its job is to watch for files to change in a folder. Literally all it does. Okay. A lot of stuff goes into it behind the scenes, a lot of extra magic and that sort of good stuff. But that is the Git source control tool. And source meaning your code, your source code, right? We need to control your source code and see what happens to it and see how it changes and see how it evolves over time, especially if you're working with more than one person. You don't want to have to email files back and forth. That is awful. I promise you, it's awful. We have tools for that. And it turns out software engineers like to write tools to solve software problems. So that's a pretty good tool. GitHub is a hosting provider of the Git source control tool. So GitHub recently, it's been a couple of years now, was bought by Microsoft, our friends there, and they're really good at giving stuff away to educational communities, which is awesome. So there's a GitHub Classroom tool that I use that creates Git repositories that you folks can use to put your code in. So not too big of a deal. I'll show you how this all works here. So every project will have its own repository, and a repository is nothing more than a folder, just a folder here. This is CIS 200 fall 2022. All right, you can invite people later, figure that all out. Don't need to actually add you. I'll make an assignment. So here is our CIS 200 fall 2022. We'll just call this lab 0 example. So you'll do a similar thing in your lab with Mr. Dia. So labs don't meet the first week of class for some reason. I don't know why, but there's a sign on the door that says labs don't meet the first week of class. Last I looked. So next week, so after Labor Day, we'll have a lecture on classes and objects, and then you'll have the lab with Mr. Dia. You'll do some Unix stuff. We'll do some GitHub stuff. That should be pretty good. Don't think there'll be time for classes, but that's okay. We'll get caught up relatively quick. And most of what we'll talk about at classes should be review. I just want to make sure we have a good base for everybody. All right. And I need a starter. Do I have a starter repository? I don't have it. I'll fix that later. That's okay. All right. So what this is going to do is going to give me a link here. I'll post this link for you in Canvas, and then you go and click the link. And it says, oh, hey, do you want to accept the assignment? So we'll do this for all of your individual projects. We'll do this for your group project. And I can add your partners to your repository so you can both collaborate in that shared space. You say, yeah, I want to accept. Again, you have to be logged into GitHub, so you have to make the account. It says it takes a few minutes. It takes like 5 seconds, if that, so you can go and refresh. Now you get a link, github.com/Chernesky, that's me because it's my organization, / the name of the project, or name of the assignment here, so CIS 200 fall 2022 lab 0 example, -- your username. So this will be a unique URL for each of you for whatever your username is. Okay, you'll click on that and it'll take you to a website. Oh, okay, I didn't use the template. I should have used the template. That's okay. Yeah. All right, this is a bad, I'm sorry, I should have done a template. This is a bad example. But you'll say open a desktop, essentially. It'll open up your GitHub Desktop Client. It'll say, hey, do you want to clone this repository? That's a fancy word for make a copy. Right? The idea with Git is that it is a distributed source control system. So everyone who has a copy of the repository has the entire set of code. And by repository, it just means a folder. So anything you put in that folder, now we can start tracking with Git. So in my GitHub Desktop Client, which you'll have go and download, you can go to repository and say show in Explorer or open in Finder, I think on Macs, and you'll see it's just a folder. So in C, users, Eric C, documents, GitHub, this is the default location. You're welcome to change it if you want. I don't care where you put it. You just need to know where it is. And if you forget, you can always come back here and say show in Explorer. It'll open it up for you. But it makes a folder with the name of the repository. So this is CIS 200 fall 2022 lab 0 example -- Eric Chernesky. Hey, students, thanks for coming along. So what happens now is Git is watching this folder for anything to change. So as files change inside of here, we put things in here, Git is going to track them for us. So I can say, hey, I want a new text file, test.txt, and we can open that one up and say hi there. Nothing super exciting. And then our Git client says, hey, there's something new. So green means a new file, red means a deleted file, yellow means a file's been changed. Just for some colors. I don't know why they use traffic light colors, but red and green I think makes sense. Which is actually tough for people who are colorblind, but there is a plus and a minus if you're colorblind. One of my friends at work is colorblind. So we run into like all sorts of issues. Not as many, but occasionally he's like, I can't tell the difference there. We're like, oh, okay. So it's actually pretty handy. And then because Git is made for source code, it tracks changes at the line level. So it says, hey, inside of this file, there's one line. It says hi there. It's a little small on the screen. I apologize. It's kind of hard to zoom. And what we can do here is you can make a commit. A commit is just a fancy term for a snapshot. It essentially saves the state of that folder and every file inside of it. Once you have a commit, you can almost always go back to it. Unless you enter some commands you found on Stack Overflow, I can get you back to it. If you Googled something and just typed in a bunch of stuff, you had no idea what it was doing, you might have lost it. So try not to go down that route. Okay, if you get stuck with Git, come ask me questions. Happy to help you going. But you make a commit. So With commits, we give it a summary. We say, well, what is this commit about? Different organizations have different standards about what they want to see here. Honestly, I don't care what you put here. Some people that I work with swear at the computer because they get really frustrated when they're working at stuff and they make some funny commits. Sure, go for it. If it makes you feel better to yell at your computer, go for it. The computer can take it. I promise. It's not going to care. But you put some sort of message. So this is our test.txt file created. And then you say commit. Now, it's been committed. So now my version of the repository has the change. GitHub.com doesn't have it yet because it's a distributed source control system. So I have a copy of this change, but the cloud doesn't have it. So it's known as origin. Don't worry too much about that. So I'll go publish it and push it out to github.com, to the central location. And what happens is anyone else who's collaborating with me will sync with that central location, that central repository. That's why it's nice as a cloud. They also sell it to organizations who are scared of clouds, so they can install it on their data center. Sure. Some people want to go that route, and they pay GitHub a lot of money for it. Why not? The cloud stuff is free for us because we're an educational institution, which is awesome. So once I've pushed it now, I can go back to the website and I can hit refresh, and the website gives you a fantastic view of what's in the repository or folder. So I can see there's a file named test.txt, and the files are links. I can click on it, it will open it up and show me the text of what's here. This one I can zoom. Yay. It says hi there. So all Git does is it watches for files to change in this folder. So it turns out there's actually a hidden file in here. Let me do my hidden items. There's a folder called .git. If your folder starts with a dot, it's usually hidden by default because you shouldn't touch it. Don't touch the .git folder. Okay. I don't know what'll happen, but probably bad stuff. Okay. It's hidden by default, so you shouldn't even see it usually. So all the magic happens there. And honestly, I don't know how Git works. It's over my head, but that's okay. I just got to take advantage of it. So as this file changes, we'll say Happy Monday here, and then maybe we'll put something at the top, and we'll say I'm Eric. Nice to meet you. We can go back to the GitHub client. Sometimes it takes a second, depending on how fast your computer is. Now you'll see it's yellow, and with a dot, this file's changed, and it says in red, hey, this line 1 is gone. The new line 1, line 2, and line 3 are these things. Right? And it will show me, so I can say Happy Monday. Quit that and push. Wait 1 second. I'm sorry, that's the doctor calling back. Sorry. Sorry, usually that doesn't happen. He was in the ER last night, so we're trying to follow up with his doctor. Here's a mess, by the way. It's just a mess. All right, so it tracks changes. The great thing then is if I have this folder, I can make my project inside the folder, and then it all gets tracked magically. Or not even magically, because I put it there. All right, so in Visual Studio, when I make a new project here, I'm going to make my empty C++ project. I don't want it to be in source repos. I don't want it there. Right? I want to go change this location and go find my documents folder, find my GitHub folder, find CIS 200 fall 2020 lab 0 example, Eric Chinesky, and say, great, that's the folder I want to put this project in. So here's my lab 0 example. And then whether or not you like your project and solution in the same directory, I don't care. It really doesn't matter one way or the other. It just, there's a new folder or there's not a new folder. I generally don't check the box, but if you want to check the box, go for it. I'll say create. Our Visual Studio makes a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so there's a bunch of things now that show up in GitHub that say, oh, hey, there's a bunch of things here. The solution file, the SLN file, the VCXproj file, the project file, filters and users. There's no code here yet because we haven't made a code file. This other stuff should go away. It won't show up when you do it because I'll have a better template set up. But now I can go and make a new source file, add my new item. Here's my source CPP. Sure, go for it. And do our lovely hello world, right? Everyone has to start with hello world. So we'll, using namespace standard. Apparently that's bad to do or lazy to do. I don't know. I always do it anyway. But if people who write your paychecks say don't do it, don't do it. It's not too big of a deal. It saves us a lot of time. We'll include our IO stream over in for main, and we can see out hello world and a nice little end line and call it good. Make sure it runs. Okay. We've got the debugger. Might as well make sure our code runs. And we get a hello world. Fantastic. Looking pretty good so far. I come back to GitHub, see a bunch of stuff. Again, I'll clean most of that up here a little bit, but I want to see there's a source CPP file. This is fantastic. This is what we want here. Okay. I will clean that up. One sec. So GitHub file. This one here. So because Git is for tracking source control, not other files, you don't want it to track executables. The idea is you can compile your own executable, right? And literally every time you change your program, that one's going to change anyway. It's not really a lot of value to save that. So what you can do is you can add an ignore file here, and the ignore file says, hey, Git, don't add these files to your source control tracking. Just ignore them, right? Which is good. So it's going to add all sorts of, actually, do I want this one? Or think about Visual Studio. Studio file. I think I want this one. I think this is the one I want. Yeah, because this will ignore all the good stuff here. There's a bunch of stuff in here. Don't worry about it. Nice. And this will come in your project templates. I just haven't done it yet. Git ignore. Open that code. The little guy was in the ER all yesterday afternoon, so it kind of threw off my plans. And like you find, folks, when there's a deadline for something like, hey, it's due Monday, I'm waiting until Sunday to do it. So I can appreciate how that works for you folks. There we go. So now I added that file. All that stuff is ignored. We don't want any of that because we can go and generate it by compiling. And then there's also some like user-specific files that get ignored as well, which is good. And they will just change every time. So now you get the solution file, the project file, the filters file, and the CPP file, our source code file, which is great. So now we can commit this here. Here's our lab 0 example. We'll give it a commit and we'll push. Just committing is not enough. You have to push, right? And then go and see it on the website. If you can see it on github.com, I can see it on github.com. If you can't see it on github.com, I promise you, I can't see it on github.com either. Okay, so that's your like last sanity check. Did my files make it out there? We'll go and look, right? If you see your files out there back in your repository, we'll just come back here and refresh. Now there's a lab 0 example folder. Zoom just a little bit here. Folders, when you click on them, open up and you can see the files inside the folders. There's a solution file. We don't really care about solution files much. So I'm going to go inside the lab 0 example project file. There's the project file, the filters file, and then the source file. This is the one we care about, right? Did my code make it out there? I click on source CVV, and look at that, I can see it. I can see the code. GitHub is made for collaborating and sharing code, not Canvas, right? So all of the code we do in class will be done and published in GitHub. So all my examples that I do for you, I will publish to a public GitHub repository that everyone can have access to. I don't bother trying to add individual people. There's nothing super amazing out there that I'm going to add. So it'll just be a public repository. This particular repository is a private repository because the GitHub Classrooms thing made it that way for me. Right? There's a little lock here. It's marked as private. So you'll have access, I'll have access, and Dia will have access. Right? Our amazing PhD candidate who's going to be your lab instructor. Okay, that's great. So if you can see it on the website, I can see it on the website. The other really cool thing, as this starts getting larger and larger and larger, and you write more and more and more code, the line numbers are clickable. They're links too. So I can click on 6, and now it adds the #6. That's not a hashtag, by the way. I'm old enough to know this is a £, or an octothorpe, if you like technical terms. That's a really fun thing to just say to people because they're going to look at you funny. Like, what did you say? No, octothorpe. It has 8 sides or something. Anyway, so it makes a link to the line number. So if you're having trouble with your code, you can send me a link over Discord, over email. Texting me links is usually awkward, but we can make it work. But we'll figure it out. And you can say, hey, I'm having some trouble. I'm getting an error message. Here's the line I'm having problems with. I've been doing this for how many years? Since 17 years coding. So most of the time I can look at your code and see what's wrong with it. I don't even need to run it. Sometimes I have to run it because you folks can write some really interesting stuff. That's okay. That's one of the things I like about programming is it is as much an art as it is a science, right? The science part of like how do we do it fast, right? How do we do it efficiently? That's definitely a science. But the hard part of programming is problem solving. How do I take a big problem and break it down into simple enough steps that a stupid computer can do it for me? That's the hard part, honestly. So that is an art, right? How you break down problems, how you solve them. There's a phenomenal term. That's one of my favorite technical terms. It's called functional decomposition. Right? We're breaking down a big problem into smaller and smaller and smaller problems, smaller and smaller functions so we can write to solve. Because it's easy to solve a small thing, harder to solve a big thing. So if you break your big thing up into lots of small things, you can solve a lot of easy things. Right? You put it all together and you now have solved your big problem. So we'll write our code, we'll commit it to GitHub. I can see it on GitHub, you can see it on GitHub. Life is good. So nothing will be in Canvas when it comes to code. Okay? So I'll share the links to the repositories. This one's the private one. I gotta go make a new repository. One for me. I've got a bunch here. That's okay. So I said CIS 200, fall 2022. So it's a public repository. I want the Visual Studio, ignore. This is what will be a nice template for later. So, and then I'm going to license mine because I think that's fun and fine and just makes life easy. Yours is private. You don't need to worry about that. If you do go and make like a public portfolio, it's probably not worth any money. Let's be honest. The sort of things you folks are doing probably doesn't matter, but it's just a good habit to get into. Go take a look, see what it all looks like, and we can go from there. All right, so this will be my public repository for the course here. So I can go and clone this one now. Again, the green code button's easiest. When it comes to programming, there's like always 3 ways to do everything. Right? Whichever one is your favorite, great. I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts usually. I'm a fan of buttons. That make life easy for me. So I'm going to say open with GitHub Desktop. I'll say, do you want to open GitHub Desktop? Yes. So here's your chance. If you want to change the path, go for it. Some people, especially on Windows, because they want to sell OneDrive, which actually I'm a big fan of OneDrive, not too opposed to that. Their folder goes somewhere else to a OneDrive documents folder. That's fine. Now you have a copy on the OneDrive cloud and the GitHub cloud. Sure, Microsoft has it twice, but it doesn't really matter. If you do want to change it, go for it. You can change the path anywhere you want. Some people like have a whole set of folders for school and for semesters and for classes. Go for it. Just wherever that folder ends up here, that's where you're going to put your code. Okay, so it's really flexible. Git doesn't care where you put it. It just says, hey, I'm watching this folder. I like defaults because defaults are pretty easy. So I'll just let it be in my GitHub folder. So this will be the repository I use for all of the course examples. So anything I'm doing up front here, Mondays and Wednesdays will go out here. So you can go see it on github.com afterwards. So if I make another project, let me just copy all this because it's easier. A new project, an empty project. I'm going to put it in the different location here. So I could hit browse, or I think I can just pick this one here. I should find it. This is week 1. Create that. Now I've got a project, and I can go and add my source CPP file, paste it all in, make sure it runs, and hello world again. All right. Now my GitHub client again says, hey, I see some new stuff here. Great. We want to commit that change, right? You have to give it a commit message. I don't care what you use. I'll try and be somewhat organized. So this is like week 1, hello world, or something. And then push, commit and push. So push is how you synchronize your changes with the cloud. When you get to working with teams, there's also a pull option. So you push changes and you pull changes. So if someone else has changed that central repository, the origin or the cloud, you need to go and pull those changes down to your repository. And you can do that, no big deal. I'll show you this one thing here. Try not to use it because we have better tools. But if you really want to, you can go in here on GitHub and say, hey, I want to edit the file. And you have a text editor right out here. So I can see out Happy Monday from github.com. And then you can give it a commit summary here. So here's Happy Monday from github.com. And you can commit. So now the central repository has changed. My local repository on my laptop doesn't know about it, right? Has no idea. So again, when you're working with teams, it's much more important. You're probably not going to be doing this. I really don't recommend you write code in a browser, right? It's not a good experience. It works, but like it's not great. So if it doesn't see the changes, you can click the fetch button. Fetch says, hey, go find what happened out in the central repository. And now it says, hey, do you want to pull one change down? So I can hit pull, and now it will go and change that file for me, which is fantastic. And because Git watches things at the line level, it can usually just change the file right at that line. It's pretty good at it. And then you can also then go see this history. So this is the changes tab. There's also a history tab here. You can go and see all of the commits that were done. And you can see what changed and when. So here's the Happy Monday commit. This line was removed. These 2 lines were added. Right? So you can see at the line level what changed. So as your files get bigger and your projects get more complex, you can see, oh, I changed this one particular function right in here. That's pretty cool. And you'll have this history essentially forever. Well, for the life of that project. But when you go into the real world and you have some sort of product that you're selling, because companies need to sell products to make money, you'll have the history of what happened to the file and when, who changed it, and that other sort of thing. So it's always tracked by their user as well. Now for you folks, I don't care what your GitHub username is, because you're going to have to turn in the link to Canvas. That's the only way I know who's who. So unfortunately, there's one additional step. So then in Canvas, when there's an assignment, it'll say, hey, turn in something. The thing you're going to turn in is the website URL here. So you can just link me right to here. That way, from Canvas, I have your name, because Canvas has your name, and then you have your GitHub link with whatever username you want over there. Right? Just because you committed to GitHub does not mean I know about it. It's out there, I can access it, but I don't know about it. So turning it into Canvas triggers the academic side of things and says, hey, Eric, go score this, please. Because that's what you folks all want, is me to score your stuff. Right? I know you want the practice and you want to write the code to learn it and be better at it, but you'll probably be pretty sad if I don't score it. Right? Okay. And that's kind of what we're all hanging out here for. All right, so that is the GitHub website. So on Wednesday, we'll talk more about Unix and have some practice there. And then we're not going to do a lab this week because first weeks don't do labs. And I don't know why, I'm sorry. It's just sort of a thing. So next week, no class Monday for Labor Day. Hopefully you go do something fun. And then Wednesday, we'll talk about objects and classes. And then you'll have your first lab assignment with Mr. Dia. It's fantastic. He's a great PhD candidate, super smart guy. And we'll start getting into the Zybooks textbook. So I know Zybooks, and you might have had it in the 150 class, like tracks whether or not you've done stuff, and they might have given you points for it or not. There's no points for it. Right? I'm not going to give you points for going and doing the textbooks. We've got the quizzes that encourage you to go and read it. So all the quiz stuff will come out of either the Zybook or the things that I say. Those should be fair game. The recommended books, I'm not going to put any quiz material in from. right? These are just if you want to go a little deeper, want an actual textbook style. And I'll be honest, Pearson does a decent job with writing textbooks or getting people to write textbooks and editing them and publishing them and whatnot. But I think Pearson charges way too much, and I'm upset with them for that. So because I had to pay for a lot for books, which is just a crazy racket. Anyway, so Wednesday, talk more about Unix. No lab next week. No class Monday. Class Wednesday. First lab Wednesday. And then we'll just kind of pick it up and keep going from there. Our first project will start on the 12th. We'll have 2 weeks to do it. We do the 26th. I'll go over the solution in class on the 26th. Again, so please plan accordingly. Don't turn it in late. Okay, we're all nodding. Okay, good. And then we'll start project 1 after that. You'll have 2 weeks for project 1. It'll be due. We'll go over project 1. Again, on and on and on. We'll just kind of follow that pattern. We hit the midterm, and we'll spend the whole Monday will be for review. The Wednesday, I make them open book, open notes. You can do it at your computer, so you don't need to come to class. And if you didn't hear me, I won't actually be in town that week because I get to write the schedule. The midterm week is when I'm at Disney World with the family. So you can just do it from your computer. It'll have a time limit on it, but it will have plenty of time. It's not. I don't like doing stuff under tons of time pressure. But my idea is about 24 hours from once you hit start to finish it. And it's designed so that you can take it in an hour and 15 minutes if you write really fast, like if it were a paper exam. So it won't be big. I'll give you last semester's or last time I taught the classes, midterms. You can see kind of what the questions are like. I'll give you a study guide. Half of it will be quiz questions, half will be programming questions. That's the goal for the midterm. And then we work our way through Thanksgiving break. We start the group project in November. Final presentations on our final exam day. So you groups, pairs, maybe a trio will present to the class, and we'll get it evaluated, and we'll be out the door for the fall. Questions, thoughts, or concerns? And I owe you a couple links. I'll post all those to Canvas, and we can go from there. All right, so I'll see you folks either in person Wednesday or on Twitch Wednesday, or you can just watch the video on YouTube Wednesday at some point, right? Up to you. Take care.